Hello, League fans, and welcome to the 2017 North American Challenger Series. I'm Optimus Tom Sirfos, and joining me again on the desk for this Challenger broadcast is Mark Zimmerman.
Yeah, I'm getting a little too much of you, Tom. I see you twice a week now. It's getting too much.
It's like overly attached analyst.
Yeah, exactly what it is.
All right, well, before we get into today's games, let's talk a little bit about some changes this week because we are going to be starting off on 7-2.
Right, and the big thing with this patch, of course, is the lethality changes, the fact that they buffed it significantly, so you see a lot of AD carries going for different builds, and it's going to be interesting to see if they track that and if new champions rise in the meta as well. Just something like a Lucian could come back pretty strong.
Yeah, Lucian could potentially be one of those targeted ones. We also have the Varus that could be picked up as more of a contested tick, and of course, Jason, the top lane, is going to be benefiting a lot from that lethality as well. But those champions are not the only ones we could potentially see more of because Warwick is enabled in this
Yeah,
patch.
they finally got the rework out on this guy, and it's been an interesting champion to kind of track the stats on in solo queue. Tends to do really well at lower levels of play, but the win rate drops off very quickly as you get to higher levels. So not anticipating seeing this in the Challenger scene, but we've also seen a lot of other stuff that we didn't think we'd see already.
Yeah, we've already seen a lot of interesting picks in the Challenger series. So the Warwick could be something that they can test. A lot of people have been kind of comparing him to a Rengar as far as like the way his utility can work from his kit, but not necessarily as strong.
Right. I mean, Rengar brings a ton of damage. That's one of the things people kind of knock against the Warwick, is that while the CC is pretty crazy and he has very sticky tools, he's just doesn't quite kill you the way Rengar does.
That's true.
Not much does.
No, not a lot really kills you like a Rengar, except for maybe a Kha'Zix or who also would like the lethality buff. That's okay, though. So instead of speculating, let's review the teams, how they finished in week 1 so we could jump into week 2. Delta Fox sits alone at the top of the table after their 2-0 and finish, and then in the middle of the pack is a lot of 1-1 teams. Big Gods Jackals, E United, Gold Coin United, and Tempo Storm all tied up there. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the standings, Team Gates, they're still looking for their first victory.
Right, and it's been, like we said, a very interesting first week. It wasn't just that some teams that we thought would be the favorites struggled. It was also the way that it happened. I mean, we saw Quas had a ton of interesting picks. We saw the Swain in game 1, and in game 2 we had the Alawi. Both games, not necessarily the most impressive score lines, but he always had a ton of pressure coming towards him, and he was making plays. So it was very fun to watch him go to work, but not the craziest stat lines, didn't quite dumpster the games.
That's fine, because as long as Quas is doing Quas things, it's kind of difficult for anybody to really deal with these picks, not only because he has a certain mastery of these champions that you might not exactly be as familiar with, but you're not going to be familiar with playing against them, let alone having the mastery of somebody like Quas does on those champions.
Right, so obviously Quas was one big storyline. The other one, of course, was that GCU, they were expected to be the best team by far. They struggled week 1 going 1-1, but it was without Madlife, who is back joining the team now. And so we're going to be able to see the debut of the Korean god in NA Challenger. It's crazy to hear and think about.
Yeah, and that's going to be our second game of the day, so why don't we see who faces off for the rest of the schedule. First up, we got Big Gods Jackals versus undefeated Delta Fox. Then, as we mentioned just now, E United and Gold Coin United will catch game number 2 of them second up. And finally, we're going to catch up with the conclusion of Tempo Storm versus Team Gates in our last match of the day.
Right, a lot of interesting stuff to track throughout the day. Obviously, Delta Fox being the first one, they had really long game times. Then we talked about Madlife coming in, and then closing out the day with Tempo Storm, see if Quas has any other surprises for us.
We'll have to see if Team Gates is going to be able to get themselves a win. So with that out of the way, why don't we just start and talk out about this first matchup? Big Gods Jackals against the undefeated Delta Fox. We're going to have to see if they remain undefeated after tonight, though, because they have a tough opponent against them in Big Gods Jackals, which we didn't really expect.
Right, they split 1-1 versus Gold Coin United, the expect to be strongest team in the Challenger series, and Fabi looked really, really strong. He was joking about in that interview the fact that he didn't want to play people like Freeze and stuff. He wanted to play Challenger carries, and he's going to have another chance against Shinon. He was against Rikara in the first games, and I mean, he looked really good. He had a lot of damage done, and he was playing that Lucian that we were talking about, which might be even stronger now.
Yeah, that's very true. He did have that kind of pocket pick. He was very heavily targeted in the pick ban phase, well, the Ashe, the Varus, the Jhin all being taken away from him. But on the other side of the rift is Delta Fox, who are coming into tonight with that undefeated 2-0 record. We're going to see if they can keep it.
Right, and they started strong. They had a lot of good early games, and then they kind of faltered, and then the games would drag on forever. They make a couple mistakes, and it was against what many would consider the weakest team in Team Gates. So overall, it's very nice that they had the 2-0, but it wasn't this kind of, oh my God, these guys are the clear favorites. Now they're number 1 in the league. And this will be a much better indicator of how strong they are going up against Big God Jackals.
Yeah, even though those games did go extremely, extremely long, it took 9 Dragons and 4 Barons across 2 games for them to actually be able to push in and win the game. So we'll see if they've actually kind of tied up some of those loose ends. But aside from that, they looked pretty good, and Baby himself actually shared where he hopes Delta Fox is going to be heading in the Challenger Series.
My goal for this split is to actually prove that the Fox sister team's actually like LCS ready, so we become respected, maybe get some LCS playtime.
It's nice to hear that he's not just content with making it back into the LCS with this challenger team. He also wants to prove that he's better than his counterpart on the main roster in Gate. He wants his playtime back.
That's true. He did have a bit of playtime in the previous split, and now I'm going to be kind of one of the veterans in the challenger scene. A lot of it's going to be on his shoulders. So why don't we just start off by meeting the teams for the first match of tonight. Starting on the blue side, it's Big God's Jackals. The top lane is RF Legendary. In the jungle, it's Wiggly. Mid lane is Peek and Woof. In their bottom lane combo, Fabi and Bayano.
And on the other side of the rift, it's Delta Fox. In the top lane, Brandini. Jungle is Grigne. Mid, Damonte. Bot lane is, like we said, Shine On. And backing him up is Baby. A lot of people with some LCS experience.
Yeah, both of these teams combined actually have a lot of LCS experience on their rosters. Fabi himself, we said before he wanted to play against some of the challenger level AD carries. He's going up against Shine On this time around. Last week he played against Rikara. He wanted going with a sub support as well in Bayano. They're unfortunately still not using Conquan, so it'll be really interesting to see like how does he stack up here, because if this is who he wants to prove himself against, where's it going to go?
Right, and I think that is the kind of thing where maybe the meta is good for Fabi right now. He's always been someone who was more in the challenger scene. He actually did do very well on the carries like the Kalista and the Lucian last year, but he also has a lot of talent on Ashe, Jhin, Varus. So overall, I think the meta is really good for Fabi, and this would be a excellent proving ground for him if he can, kind of look really dominant for the second week in a row.
Yeah, and with a lot of those kind of utility AD carries that were extremely popular when Fabi was playing in the LCS, we'll see if he can kind of continue that. But for Delta Fox altogether, even though they utilized those utility picks themselves, Shine On played both Varus and Ashe in their 2 wins last week. They didn't necessarily look as coordinated as a team like Big Gods was, and it may just be because that some of those more important roles, Damonte and Shine On, those 2 carry-centric roles, do not have that LCS experience.
It could be. It could also just be the shot calling. I think that was something that really plagued them, knowing what was a good objective to go for and when it wasn't. Because, I mean, like we said, they would get leads pretty early on, and then they would make a mistake or two, and then once you make a big throw around an objective, you basically have to play the game out from even, despite how much work you put in the early game.
Yeah, and Delta Fox, although in game number 1 they fell behind a little bit, they were able to rally back, take an Elder Dragon fight that catapulted them into an explosive game 2, where they may have just been a little bit too afraid to make those moves, but we'll see what they're going to be afraid of in this match, as the bans are already firing away, 2 on each side.
Right, we see the Zyra, Syndra on blue side, generally the team that has the ability to do targeted bans. Red side stuck often with the LeBlanc, Rengar, Camille. We see 2 of them. Gonna see if that Camille comes in last.
Well, I don't know. Delta Fox probably don't want to leave. They actually do wind up banning Riseway. They leave the Camille open, and now this puts Big God Jackals in that sticky situation. You have to remember, Echo Fox this past weekend, the LCS team, played that support Camille, so that being on the table is a little bit scary if they've been practicing with Delta Fox.
Big God Jackals isn't going to give them the chance to do that. They take the Camille right away. It is one of those champions where you wonder how much experience people really have on it, because it's banned all the time in solo queue, all the time in scrims. So we'll get to see if RF Legendary has practice on it, or maybe they flex it somewhere else. We've seen it in the support position. We saw it in the jungle position in Challenger, or the collegiate scene, so it's all over the place.
Well, that does mean that Delta Fox is able to take 2 of the characters that they feel are most powerful right after that Camille. They pick up the Kha'Zix, has kind of been a jungle staple so far in Season 7, and they pick that Varus away, who, as you mentioned with the lethality changes, can only be a little bit stronger than he was already.
Right, I think those are probably 2 of the best picks that they could have got here, assuming that they, don't want to take anything crazy like a tank early. I think most people are going to wait to see, because of the lethality buffs coming in for a lot of the carries is very nice, actually, that generally counter the tanks. So on the other side, we see Big God Jackals going with Jhin and Malzahar, a very, very strong bot lane. Malzahar with the Zyra ban being probably the strongest support left open, and just brings so much to a team in terms of its pick potential and lane presence.
Yeah, and it looks like Delta Fox are potentially looking to pick up a counter top laner here. The Poppy hasn't seen a lot of play unless it's, it's like that third wheel in the Maokai versus Nautilus kind of tank versus tank matchup. But the denial of movement coming out from the W is really something that can stop Camille from those long-range engages upon, the squishy backline.
I mean, it is still very difficult, so you have that W to stop her E coming in. And then you also have her ultimate that when she finally comes down, the Poppy can often knock her out of it and hopefully save that carry that's become isolated. But it is still very, very scary to play against the Camille, because if you're ever not quite in the right position, she can delete someone instantly.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how Delta Fox is going to deal with the Camille. Of course, there's still a jungle pick that Big God's Jackals needs to pick up in addition to their mid laner, whereas Delta Fox on the opposite side, they picked up one of their solo laners from themselves, and they will have that counter pick in the last phase of this draft here. does seem like the Misfortune's been banned away by Big God's Jackals. They don't want that against the Malzahar, but 2 jungle bans from Delta Fox targeted at Wiggly now that that pool's kind of condensed a little bit.
Right, I mean, once in the first phase of the draft, if you ever end up with a lopsided where you're not matched up all the way down, generally your second ban phase is targeting one of those advantages, trying to pinch their pool. So with the Kazakhs locked in, generally considered the strongest jungler behind the Rengar, who's always banned, basically. It's pretty common to see if they don't take, the Lee Sin or Rek'Sai right away into it, you ban those out. And they did not actually target the Rek'Sai here. They went the Elise instead, obviously with some scouting, knowing that Big God Jackals, Wiggly prefers that over the Rek'Sai most likely, and they want to get him off of it.
Yeah, Wiggly actually had a pretty good game himself last week. Altogether in the series, he was 10, 6, and 8 with a 79% kill participation.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so pretty good. But they did ban out the Lulu from the side of Big God's Jackals. That still leaves one of kind of the bigger supports left on the table in the Karma, which Delta Fox is just happy to snatch up.
Right, and Lulu did receive some minor changes in this patch, I believe.
Teeny bit, yeah.
The passive as well as the Q mana cost going down. So overall, not huge things to Lulu, but if you already don't like playing Malzahar against Lulu, now there's even more reason to ban it. The Corki comes in, one of the safest mid laners available on this patch. You can take Exhaust, you should be able to make it through basically any laning phase. Has good wave clear, good poke, good damage, scales well in the late game, and overall very safe champion.
Yeah, so the Corki, of course, we've seen a lot of players in the LCS, a lot of players overall in competitive play do some very nice things. A lot of high damage coming out from that. In addition to the fact you already have the long range kind of poke coming out from Jhin, kind of synergizes extremely nice. And they're going to be finishing that off with picking up a rather tanky jungler. They were hovering the Ivern, but they decided to go with the tried and true on the Rek'Sai.
Right, and the Rek'Sai kind of is the obvious choice there after those bans. It is a champion that is one of the few tank junglers that a lot of people play, so it is nice that they're actually able to get that with the Camille, a more carry-oriented top laner. So even though Delta Fox kind of targeted the Elise away, probably more comfort champion, the Rek'Sai is still a great fit in the comp that Jackals have.
And Delta Fox looks like they're going to finish off with a Twisted Fate lock-in for that mid lane. Now, Twisted Fate doesn't necessarily have the strongest of lane phases. He does have a decent amount of wave clear to match the Corki in the mid lane, but with the combination with the Kazakhs, who's going to be able to move around the map extremely fast, especially post level 6, you won't really see him coming with his invisibility. The Twisted Fate Destiny Gate combination is always a big threat on the map, no matter where you are.
Right, and it's really nice versus a split pushing carry-oriented top laner like the Camille. You can get up there and try and stop it from snowballing at 6 early, and then once the map starts opening up, it becomes a lot harder to split push versus that TF who might be able to join in and help defend the Poppy at any point. So it just makes it a little bit harder to carry out the game plan that Big Jackals is going for with a pretty obvious 4-1 comp.
And now Delta Fox, last time around, they were the ones that played the Katarina and the Corki. They had some very high damage mid laners. Demonte himself was dealing 32% of his team's overall damage. We'll have to see if this Twisted Fate pickup is going to be something that is kind of relegated to, the wave clear duties in the later stages of the game, or if he is the one that's going to be making plays, because his Katarina in game number 1 versus Team Gates was extremely, extremely strong.
Right, totally different style of champion here. Both, still playmakers, but one is that kind of long range, try and catch somebody out in a split push situation, or if the support ever walks a little bit out of position, go and pick them off. But the Katarina a lot more mechanically intensive, a lot more timing based. Like you have to go in at exactly the right time and be able to get your combo off correctly. So not quite as easy as a gold card, wild cards. All right, there's my damage.
And there's a lot of, you have to also kind of navigate these extremely carefully, because if you look at the side of Big God's Jackals, they have the Camille who, in a split push situation, sure, the Twisted Fate might be able to go over there and match, but she's basically a duelist through and through. You also have a lot of catch potential. You have the Corki, if he gets the package, is going to be able to roam around the map and catch people out of position. You have the Jhin and the Malzahar, who have that CC chain combination. We saw Tempo Storm do something similar with the Malzahar and Ashe combination. So if you're looking at on paper with what Big God's Jackals has, Delta Fox wants to try to roam on them. Big Gods, they have a couple of answers.
Right, well, both these teams, they have a lot of ways to deal with a split pusher. So Big God Jackals, of course, having the Camille, they also have ways to support her without having to rotate all their forces over. Of course, you can see that contribution come in from a Corki, just packaging in to help finish off a turret or something, as well as a Jhin if you ever need to snipe and finish up the follow-up kills. If you have pressure, you can just kind of dip into the jungle and start sniping from there. So they have a lot of ways to back the Camille up pretty indirectly, while on the flip side, we were talking about Delta Fox going to be trying to shut her down.
And I also kind of want to keep my eyes peeled as far as the Corki on this team goes. Like we mentioned very briefly, okay, he has wave clear, but we have seen him be a very powerful pickup in the split push game as well, which is something that, last week when we were watching E United versus Tempo Storm, E United was very, very high on that 1-3-1 kind of split push synergy. So you have the Jhin, who wave clear isn't the best, but when combined with the Malzahar, can kind of keep those waves pushed out. Delta Fox was trying to do the same thing against Team Gates last week. They did it extremely slow. They were not necessarily as fast on their rotations. They needed multiple Baron buffs and multiple Elder Dragons to kind of close it out. do you think they're going to be able to adapt with the champions they have here?
It's hard to say. I mean, TF is one of those champions where if you are going to play slow, this split push style, it can work for you. We see, Echo Fox with Froggen bringing out the
That's true.
the rapid fire cannon TF going for that extra range for pickoff and being able to take turrets a little bit easier. Maybe it's something that Delta Fox has stolen away from him as well to debut in the challenger scene. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually kind of copy it that much. But that's going to be the big part in the late game, is seeing what they do with that.
That'll definitely give them a long-range engage option. I mean, that combined with the Varus ult with the Chain of Corruption, like that might just kind of be the trigger finger that they were looking for that they just didn't have in their series against Team Gates. As we're about to load up onto the Rift and join us on the rabbit hole as we go down into the first match of the second week of the North American Challengers.
Not sure you want to be referring to the challenger scene as Alice in Wonderland, because that gets a little crazy.
Anything can happen in the Challenger series. We've had an Alawi, we've had a Swain, which I guess has bled through into the
Yeah, I mean,
LCS.
we saw Looper pick that up, and honestly, I really like what they were able to do with it. Maybe this is kind of a testing grounds that a lot of these teams try out new crazy stuff. LCS teams see the ideas and poach them away. But one thing we didn't touch on too much in the draft was the fact that Delta Fox did secure themselves a favorable jungle matchup. Generally, Kha'Zix is considered much stronger and might be able to put in a lot of work early. Once again, we're thinking that they're going to heavily target the top side to hold down the Camille, because as much as the Poppy matchup has tools to stop what she wants to do, ultimately she does win that lane still. As we see Wiggly having to burn his flash early.
Oh, and a ghost and a flash afterwards. Grigny and Demonte really want to get down onto Wiggly, who's already burned his own flash. He will wind up getting out of that one, but that's a lot of summoners burned early on.
Right, but that seems a little over-aggressive. You get the flash for free on the jungler, especially against a Rek'Sai who really needs that flash to get the surprise, explosive ganks off. It would have made a lot of sense to just take that and be happy with just getting that. The fact that they tried to get the kill as well, burning the ghost on TF. And the flash on Kha'Zix was definitely a little overambitious.
Yeah, the flash on Kha'Zix is really the key one now, because you blew in a summoner advantage against your opposing jungler, and as you already mentioned, this is a slightly favorable matchup for Grigny's Kha'Zix, but now he doesn't have that flash himself, and Kha'Zix before level 6, I mean, yeah, he's going to be able to leap in, but he wants to really utilize that for some damage as opposed to more of a way to get in for some of the early lane ganks. So I guess we'll have to pay attention as to how both of these junglers kind of start on both of their paths. We see Grigny starting up on his own red side, whereas on the flip side, we do see Wiggly starting on his own blue side. So both junglers starting on the top lanes. Without their summoner spells, we might not see a lot of action out of them early.
Right, pretty common stuff, but we do see the bot lane of Big has actually gone and tried to get a ward onto the blue buff of Delta Fox to try and get any...
They took it.
Yeah, oh, they actually took it. That's actually a fairly common cheese that we see with the Malzahar, the Voidlings being able to tank it and allow you to take that for pretty cheap, and they actually are able to get back into the lane without losing too much. That's always the big concern when you go for a move like that, is the other team kind of cuts you off from the lane, but taking only a Karma Q, and that's basically it, is not bad at all.
Yeah, and of course by Jhin killing that jungle buff will hit level 2 around the same time that Shinon's going to be hitting that on his Varus, and those Voidling tanks. It's one of those things that they talked about on the LCS. Freaking Zyrene had a small segment where they were discussing about the rise of popularity to support Malzahar. They mentioned that he can use it to tank jungle buffs, and I guess he could steal them away as well.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it was actually Echo Fox who did that a couple times, I believe, as well. So you see the laps and strategies that they lend to each other. It's pretty interesting.
Fox should have known.
Yeah, right? Like, they should be aware that this is the kind of thing that people can do against them. I'm sure their sister team had done it to them a couple times.
Well, even though they did not notice the invade going on, things haven't necessarily gone all too askew on that bottom side. Of course, you did mention the fact that taking the blue buff is riskier. It gets you pushed in. They have been able to kind of push back, and Delta Fox recognized with basically infinite mana and extra cooldowns, they have to be safe because that Jhin and Malzahar combination can put out a lot of damage, already chunking Karma down to half.
Right, I mean, Malzahar is generally the better support in this matchup as it is. You give him a blue buff to help, or early lane advantage with the Jhin having the blue buff, being able to just be able to spam out that W non-stop, not need to worry about mana, just keep trying to root them, get those favorable trades is a huge benefit.
Fabi said he wanted to play against Challenger 80 carries. He didn't mention anything about taking their blue buffs from them and abusing them with it. But that will definitely be something we'll have to see how it kind of influences the jungle patterns, because we already mentioned the early level 1 trade, the flash on the junglers, and then the Kha'Zix, expending that summoner spell when he didn't necessarily have to. Now he's lost his own buff. That means he loses out on a decent amount of experience. That first clear, those epic monsters are very, very crucial to the early experience.
Right, well, and the blue buff itself, I mean, there's not a ton of mana reliant junglers in the meta right now. Rengar, not so much. Rek'Sai, not so much. Lee Sin, not so much. But Kha'Zix is one of the few that actually does really want that blue buff. And the fact that he lost it is a bit of a problem, as we see Rek'Sai sitting over the wall.
Yeah, Damonte pulled the blue card, has to flash away as soon as Wiggly tunnels over there. So despite losing his own flash at level 1, Wiggly is the first jungler to make something happen on the map and make TF blow his.
Right, I mean, being able to get that summoner out's great. His flash is coming up in the next couple minutes. Hopefully he'll be able to see a repeat gank and force that out onto the TF. Convert a kill there. If you're able to hold the TF down, that's actually really, really good for big Jackals, because you want to stop them from getting the TF onto the map. And if he's, you know, low, dead, no summoners, constantly pushed in by the Corki, he loses a lot more whenever he starts going for those roam plays.
Right, and Delta Fox was not known for a lot of their early game aggression, which is something that the Corki at around 8 minutes when the package winds up spawning, they could potentially abuse. Delta Fox like to go for their laning phase, extend that one out a little bit longer before they wound up running around the map and trying to get that 1-3-1 push down in week 1. They had problems when they got to that later stage, but Big God's Jackals, on the other hand, against Goldcoin United, who they were expected to lose to in a 0-2 situation, they were the ones making moves earlier on the map, especially because of that bottom lane.
Right, and I mean, you see that that is one of the places that has a lot of pressure right now on the map. Most of the other lanes farming up fairly evenly. And I mean, the farm is fairly even bottom as well, but they have constantly been shoving in over and over and over again and keeping them pushed up under their turret and have the health advantages.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the fact that a lot of these farm advantages are fairly close, because that top lane matchup between the Camille and the Poppy, you think of like a tank matchup versus a carry matchup. You think of like Fiora versus Nautilus, where the Fiora can kind of get some early game advantages. You think of the Poppy versus the Jace, where the Jace kind of smashes that lane face until Poppy gets kind of tanky. It's interesting to see the Poppy trading evenly with the Camille.
Right, as we see a huge play coming in bottom. 4 men coming out on the bot lane. Fabi's going to go down quick and easy, followed by Shion as well, but it's going to end up a 2-for-1 for the side of Delta Fox, able to get that TF out of lane, making a play very early.
Yeah, my mind was distracted to the top side of the map, but it's Delta Fox. As soon as they hit those level 6s, they get the Destiny Gate combination and the Kha'Zix roam, and they capitalize on that very aggressive push from the bottom lane of Big.
And I mean, you see the Corki trying to punish, get some damage down onto the turret, but he's not going to be able to get that much. Just a little tiny bit of chip damage before TF is back in lane, dealing with that minion wave.
Yeah, so this is Delta Fox. They may not have made the first move on the map, as that was the flash blown by at level 1. I guess that was theirs anyway. But they may not have made the first gank on the map post level 1 invade, but they are the ones that make something happen early on because of that Twisted Fate pickup in the mid.
Right, you see this is a little almost too easy. The TF cuts off the escape. There's nowhere for them to go. Fabi gets basically chain CC'd. You see the strength in the Malzahar there, able to drop a lot of damage back on the Varus and pick him up, but it's not going to be too great, because a second later he's going to go down as well. As we see a small scrap over the red buff. Ultimately, Wiggly's not able to come away with it.
Yeah,
Gets thwarted.
Trying to get a little cheeky and steal away a red buff, but the rest of Delta Fox had gone back and already returned to lane. 2 kills picked up by Grigney in the meantime has meant that he's gone for that Caulfield Warhammer, going to be building up for his Warrior enchantment earlier on, whereas Rek'Sai hasn't really gone back and finished the Cinder Hulk for herself yet. Camille, we did see teleporting back in the top lane, has gone back and completed her first item with that Tiamat, gives her a little bit of extra wave clear, a little bit of extra shoving ability before she's most likely going to go for, we've seen a lot of Trinity Force out of Camille.
Right, I mean, that's one of the best items on Camille. And what I'm interested to see is if the Poppy decides to not recall, I would expect she's going to blow her own TP getting back to lane here, else you're going to have a lot of pressure against you with the Camille being up a purchase.
Yeah, so Poppy is going to wind up getting her own recall off. And I don't really expect all too much to go off in that lane. She actually goes back, picks up Ninja Tabby, teleports immediately back into the lane. So you can already see the interaction between the Poppy Steadfast Presence blocking the Camille hookshot and actually already using the hammer knock up there, getting a lot of damage trade onto RF Legendary. Don't necessarily know. The flash forward, the hammer slam is there. Is Brandini in range to try to get the charge? One more auto attack, but the challenge is thrown down. Camille's barely going to get out of that one with just a sliver of HP.
So lucky that her passive came back up, getting that extra damage reduction, being just what she needed to live through that tower dive. Very, very aggressive play out of Brandini, and I mean, it's pretty surprising to see. You see the mistake of trying to use that hook shot at the Poppy. As soon as you get stuffed by that, you're right against the wall. Sets up a very easy heroic charge, and from there, it's hard to trade back because one of your critical abilities is down.
Yeah, and well, Camille, very, very lucky to have gotten out of that one. Not many people can get out alive when you throw down the Hextech challenge, or the Hextech ultimatum. I'm going to call it the Octagon.
Inside the Octagon.
Yeah, there you go. You read my mind on that one.
Yeah, maybe it's because we talked about it previously.
I don't know about that.
No,
I don't think we
not.
have. But now things are settling down just a little bit. Damonte's going to have that blue buff available, gives him the extra CDR. He has the Destiny Gate combination. going to be building towards a Rod of Ages, which he has just picked up right now, which means, of course, that Twisted Fate could be a little bit tankier as he scales later and later into the stages of this game, but he still has that effectiveness coming out from that roam. Corki has the package right now, so if there is a roam in the next couple of seconds, he'll be able to match it, but unfortunately for Corki, his package does not last as long as Twisted Fate can hold on to his ultimate.
Right, and the fact that Twisted Fate was able to pick up that Rod of Ages pre-10 minutes shows that he is pretty on track to become a threat throughout the course of this game. And it is hard for him to get the push versus the Corki, but at any point he can decide, I'll let you get this wave in. It's not a big deal. But, I mean, good job by Peek and Wolf keeping the pressure up here, getting the turret down to about half. Depending on how the next roam goes, it's pretty common to see teams say, okay, I can't match you even with the package. I'm just not going to bother. As soon as I know that you're trying to make a play somewhere else, I'll call my jungler mid and we'll just push this turret down. It's easier than trying to figure out where the TF's going all the time and match him, and sometimes even more rewarding.
The second use of the package, extra wave clear. But we continue to see trades going down on the top side of the map. Grigny is going to make his own visit to this side. Winds up using the Scryer's Bloom just to kind of check out to see if anybody is here. And with no wards on this side, RF Legendary, there is no flash. There's the roam from Twisted Fate as well. Kha'Zix leaps in the hook shot backwards, but he runs right into Damonte, and that's a kill picked up for Brandini.
We get to see the game plan that we were talking about with the TF trying to shut down the Camille. The fact that Brandini was basically already winning the lane anyways, showing that he was pretty comfortable in the matchup. It was not a mistake to leave that Camille up and ban the Rise. He was more than capable of handling this matchup, and he's going to be able to get the first turret with the help of Grigny.
Yep, and even though you called exactly what was going to happen in the mid lane here for Big Gods, Peek and Wolf calls over Wizard. They're trying to trade that tower, but it's already gone down for Delta Fox, so they get another kill. They get a bunch of assists on that roam, plus they get the first tower gold.
Right, it's going to be a huge influx for Delta Fox, who are already winning. Big God's going to try and continue to extend their advantage, going for the Ocean Drake, while the rest of the members of Delta Fox are stuck on the top side of the map. But honestly, you're totally fine giving that up for the play that they just made.
And it's not a bad consolation prize for Big Gods either. It's very good knowledge to know that, hey, their jungler and their top laner are just taking that tower top side. They still have to recall. There's no way they're going to be down here. We might as well take this for free. Their bottom lane is still shoving extremely aggressive, already with about a 10 CS advantage over Shinon Varus on the opposite side, who is looking like he's going for that more lethality-focused build here. He's picked up the Tear of the Goddess, so very reminiscent of the old mid-lane Varus builds.
Right, and I mean, I'm interested to see just how strong it actually is now on the lethality buffs. I mean, there aren't that many tanky members of Big. Oh, as we see RF Legendary blast coning over. Surprise, there's a Poppy there.
Just wants
Both
to
of them
say
look
hi.
at each other and be like, never mind, I don't want
Yeah,
this.
we don't want this. We know what happened last time RF Legendary tried to jump into a Poppy. He got denied and almost taken down, and then eventually roamed upon.
Guess he learned his lesson.
Yeah, we'll have to see. But going back to that scaling thing that you mentioned about the Varus with the tier build, we have the Twisted Fate who, by getting that extremely early Rod of Ages, is already begin stacking that up to kind of compensate for the fact that they also have this 80 carry that's going to want to stack his tier into the later stages of the game, which does kind of delay his power spike ever so slightly compared to just straight out buying an Essence Reaver.
Right, and you know what I was saying as well is that Big doesn't have that many tanky frontliners. You basically just have the Rek'Sai, and it's going to be very easy for him to snipe through that and hit somebody else. As we see Wiggly trying to go aggressive onto the bot lane here.
He does blow a flash out of Baby, but the curtain call is out. 2 shots wind up hitting. The third crit does land, but nobody's going to wind up going down to that. Just Big Gods trying to get a little bit aggressive at putting some pressure on the opponent's side of the map.
Right, overall, pretty good contest to go for. Trying to scare them. They do have pressure, like we said, always in the bot lane, so it generally makes it safer to invade that side. You'll have priority in terms of getting your bot lane into that jungle to support you. They're able to get the flash out of the Karma, and that's about it.
Good credit to Big Gods, though, trying to get something to happen, and they're doing it on the side of the map where they did it against Goldcoin United. Fabi, when he was playing Lucian, was like 5-1 coming out of the lane phase. The match before that, I believe he played Varus and had a very large CS advantage over Rikara coming out of that lane phase as well. So they know where their strong side of the map is, but on the side of Delta Fox, the way they're playing it a little bit more methodical, until, I guess you step out like that, Baby, knowing they have no flash on him, is going to get caught up by another grass. The Malefic Vision's taking down. He's barely going to get out of that one. Teleport was burned by Brandini, as well as the Destiny Gate combination, though. So Big Gods have shut down 2 of those globals coming out from Delta Fox.
RF Legendary looks like he canceled his, so you know, a little bit of an advantage there. So he's also able to continue pushing up the top side. No longer need to worry about a Poppy helping out as Fabi continues to shove in this bot lane turret. It's getting very low, and with the Karma forced to recall, they might not be able to hold on to this on the side of Delta Fox, but looks like ultimately Fabi's playing it a little safer, knowing that the Kha'Zix is hovering around the area.
The Grigny kind of being called down to the bot lane just to kind of play bodyguard duties on the bottom side of the map. And this is, I mean, like, as we were just saying, Big Gods had the strong side of the map on the bottom side during their first best of 2 against Goldcoin United. They're trying to play around those strengths already. They haven't necessarily gotten the same kinds of advantages. Fabi only has an assist. He wound up going to first blood in the first gank of the game. So they don't have the same exact advantage, but they know where their strengths lie. They know where the power lies, being able to lock people up with that double CC combination. And now it's really on Delta Fox. Do they focus that Camille? They've lost that mid lane tower, so there's a little bit of more open map for Big Gods. How do they shut down a potential Corki roam come the next package, which will be up in about another minute?
I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to do. The Corki's going to have priority for most of the time in this laning phase.
He has.
Yeah, he's got the package right now, and they have a ton of control along the bot river, and the fact that they usually have control of the bot side means that they're going to set up a dive here any minute now, or maybe look for someone in their jungle. We see Grigne getting chunked out pretty heavily by Pekin Wolf as he continues to just be annoying. Clear the wave, dip into the jungle, clear the wave, come back out. Just doing that over and over again makes it really hard to play around bot side as well, because you don't know if he's actually roaming or not with the amount of pink wards that they have down the river.
Right, so well, that was not the most impressive usage of the package to get some damage, poke, and run away. It did look like it expired on the side of Pekin Wolf. But now with blue buff onto Damonte, Destiny Gate combination is going to be up in just a little while. Now then the roam advantage will be back in favor of Delta Fox. And it's very interesting to kind of see how this is played out with the fact that both of these mid laners that are extremely mobile, both of these teams really want to make things happen in the earlier stages of the game. They've taken down towers in opposite lanes, one in the middle, one in the top lane, but they're still kind of continuing to prolong this lane phase because it plays to both of their team composition strengths.
Right, and we see
like
Big making a move, going onto that bot side with the control that they have, gonna jump onto Shinon. He's gonna go down. Looks like that's going to be it for them. Baby actually is going to drop as well as Pekin Wolf is going off on the Corki.
Well, you mentioned having those deep wards into the bottom side jungle, wanting to play around the strong side of the map. They played into the fact that Delta Fox did not want to give up another tower on the map, and they catch them trying to defend it on that bottom side with 3 members strong from both sides of the team. On the bottom, though, looks like Brandini's just going to, well, he doesn't want to deal with RF anymore.
I think he charged that ult a second too long. I think he was actually looking for the straight knock-up. Gets the knockback instead, bumping RF Legendary back to safety. As Delta Fox tries to get the counter push on mid lane, but they might have overextended, getting collapsed on by the rest of BIG.
Well, there is another flash out of RF Legendary. Pekin Wolf is going to Valkyrie forward, but the rest of Big Gods are here. They've rotated back from that bottom lane. Delta Fox tried to call their bluff in the middle by putting some pressure on there. Big Gods didn't stay around. They just came to defend, and now they're trying to push Delta Fox back. Oh, but Brandini doesn't want to be pushed back. He wants to go forward. The passive there from Malzahar will get popped as a flash comes out of Damonte after stunning up the Malzahar as Kha'Zix picks that kill. Now the fight is breaking out with RF Legendary in the front, but Wiggly winds up getting an Umburo in the middle of the fight here from Delta Fox. Now we see Fabi rotating down from top lane. He will get a shutdown onto Kha'Zix. Damonte will be the next one to fall as Rek'Sai sinks her teeth into her. On the backside of the fight, Pekin Wolf has stayed alive and taken down Poppy. Nobody besides the Malzahar falls, and Delta Fox lose 3.
RF Legendary getting alive, staying alive with the skin of his teeth. He got some help by Pekin Wolf to take down the Poppy. As we see, this fight's not quite over yet.
No, Baby's a little bit far forward. He doesn't really have a lot of teammates around. Corki fires a big one. Another rocket comes out, and a flash on Burrow there from Wiggly. They're going to knock up Baby. They're trying to give it to Damonte, but Wiggly's going to take it with the Cinderhold burn.
Too skilled. That's just that high level, high skill cap gameplay you see out of the Rek'Sai. Run at them. Great stuff. But overall, a really surprising team fight that went in Big Jackals' favor.
It's not done yet. Shinon trades his life for that bottom lane tower. He knew he was getting chased in the blue side jungle. He tried to recall, but Malzahar said nope.
Man, Delta Fox is just kind of losing their minds one at a time, stepping up to places that they shouldn't be at. And overall, that fight was very surprising the way that it started. And we see Big's also going to be able to get their second dragon off of that as well.
Yeah, so this fight entirely, it was started by Delta Fox, and it looked like it was going to be good. Poppy charged in, broke the passive from Malzahar, but then the fight winds up getting split up by the Camille in the front line, the Rek'Sai on the backside, and there is no AD carry available for Delta Fox in this fight because they had just been picked off on the bottom side of the map.
Right, and the fact that Fabi was able to get in there and help, contribute his damage was probably the key part that allowed them to win that fight. As we see Delta Fox trying to take a Rift Tail right now. Haven't seen too many of those in competitive play recently.
Now, the Rift Tail has been largely ignored in the competitive scene, although Delta Fox, they've lost 2 dragons, both of them Ocean, which will give Big Gods some of that stacking regeneration ability. Looks like they are going to wind up giving the Glimpse of the Void buff over to Brandini. That Poppy had an early game advantage against the Camille. Now she's finished her Trinity Force. The Glimpse of the Void will kind of help equalize things if they want to send her in that split push.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Poppy was already doing pretty well in the split push as it was, almost solo killing RF Legendary a handful of times.
It's almost like Poppy is a stupid champion.
Tell me more, Tom. I think a lot of people hold that opinion as well.
Nah, nobody holds that opinion more than I do. I just really dislike that champion.
Well, we see Delta Fox trying to get cute here and abuse the vision that Rek'Sai has. Ultimately, one person didn't get the memo, felt like moving, and the Tremor Sense spots it out.
Yeah, they said move, but didn't say Simon says move.
And you mean don't?
Oh, don't move, I guess, yeah. Well, don't move is what's going to happen right there as Bayano tries to lock them up, but Shinon's going to be the one that gets the kill. The curtain call is out from Jin, trying to get some damage down the back line and save Wiggly, but he will go down to Grigney. Baby's dropped extremely low. RF Legendary tries the hookshot over the wall, but he throws down the challenge. Grigney gets stuck in the octagon, and he gets knocked down. Now that Pekin Wolf has joined the fray, things are gone a little bit topsy-turvy for Delta Fox. Pekin Wolf picks up his second kill of the fight there as Poppy goes down. 5-0-4 on the Corki. They're still chasing after Delta Fox, extremely low HP bars. Poke coming out from all sides. Looks like they're trying to play the biggest game of dodgeball possible, but it's going to be big that wind up getting them out first. 3 more kills picked up, and ace for Big Gods.
Huge plays there on the side of Big Gods. We get to see just how strong Camille can be when she's not focused down too quickly. We also saw a great Edge of Night actually out of Fabi, who was able to stop the Gold Tar from stunning him when he was fighting the TF. That was a huge play as well. Overall, very well played team fight out of Big, and we'll take another look at it.
Yeah, and it starts off where this is kind of the freeze, don't move thing, and Grigney looks like he gets caught out of position, but once again, the Twisted Fate ultimate from Delta Fox to initiate, things look like they're going their way.
Right, and I mean, ultimately, Wiggly's going to take a ton of damage and focus from the team as, Big's able to create a lot of damage back with the Corki on the backside, just poking away, getting the squishier members low. Poppy whiffs the ultimate, which keeps Pekin Wolf in the fight. He's able to realize, okay, I can't keep chasing there. I'll change my focus onto Poppy. The damage dealers were the ones who were left alive, both the top, mid, and AD carry for Big. We're mostly untouched throughout this fight, and they're able to collapse and finish these guys off.
Yeah, and as you saw here, it was just basically who can hit who with skill shots before the rest of Big Gods winds up catching up. Fabi with that crit already charged. Trying not to even have that much health, but being able to clean up on all of those kills right there. This is Big Gods Jackals just being able to continuously turn around these engages. They're not even, it's not even a question anymore of who's going to be the ones that make the moves happen on the map. Instead, it's Delta Fox making a move and Big Gods Jackals turning it around.
Right, and now Big Gods Jackals has grabbed the gold lead by a pretty considerable margin, up to almost 4K. And not just happy with the gold lead, they want to take the blue buff away as well.
Yeah, and a lot of that's actually come out of that Corki versus Twisted Fate matchup. We mentioned before 5-0-4, now 5-0-6 for Pekin Wolf. Has a large gold advantage, almost 2,000 in and of himself, which is making up almost half of the lead that Big Gods has right now.
RF Legendary as well, having a lead over the Poppy, and we see them trying to make a play onto TF, ultimately not going to be able to do so. He's going to get stunned up under turret. He gets really low. Yeah,
and actually a flash forward. The Void Spikes come out, forces the flash from RF Legendary. The Destiny comes out, but is there going to be a gate to follow? It looks like they decide to go towards the mid lane where Fabi's kind of been caught all by his lonesome with Bayano. So they start the fight on the bot lane, they rotate to the mid lane, and they pick up 2 kills for Delta Fox.
Right, just a big overextension by Big. The fact that they thought they could make a play on the bot side of the map. RF Legendary goes down. He has to flash out for basically no reason, trying to tunnel too hard on the TF, who's unable to go mid and join the fight that was happening there.
Yeah, and that's going to result in a tower going down for Delta Fox. The knockup is there from Poppy, as it looks like the rest of Big Gods are trying to run away from what Delta Fox is applying pressure into their mid lane right now. They've already taken 1 outer tower, but it looks like they're going to be content with that and backing off. They know that their bottom lane is spawning.
It's one of the things that you don't always see in the Challenger scene, being content with what you get. I guess they learned their lesson from level 1 after blowing those flashes for no reason.
Or for the fight just beforehand in top lane where they tried to catch out more and teleport in, and it wound up collapsing and ending in an ace for them. But Delta Fox, they're able to just jump back from that one. They did suffer a loss just before that in the fight in the top lane, but then they utilized those globals to go for an aggressive move and rotate towards the mid lane. But now they're not available for this Baron take. The teleport not yet available for Poppy. There is a ward on it from the side of Delta Fox, so Big Gods Jackals are spotted while doing this, but it's dropped extremely low already, below 2,000 health.
Oh!
Jin Crit and the Smite come out. It's going to go over. Meanwhile, the challenge has been thrown down on the opposite side as RF Legendary will fall. Malzahar has also fallen, and even though Big Gods has gotten the Baron, they're not getting out with their lives, Mark. Grigney's going to go down to a crit from Fabi, but he's the only one on his team left alive.
And he's going to get chased down by Baby here. Going to get the tether off onto him, holding him in place for the rest of the team to clean him up with an ace.
See, that's why I don't like Poppy. You already can't move, and she forces you against the wall and just kills you.
Yeah, that's not too fun. I was actually really surprised with the way that VIG did that Baron. It's a really smart call to send RF Legendary over the wall. You get to trap the jungler in the octagon, and they can't actually go for a smite contest at that point. So a really smart play, but rather than taking the Baron and backing off, we get to see another team not knowing the lesson of when enough is enough. Don't take that fight, sacrifice the Camille. It sucks that you're not going to have the Baron buff on her in order to use that split push to its fullest potential, but you should just be happy with the fact that you got the Baron buff. Ultimately, they give up all their lives trying to protect her and actually win that fight. And we see RF Legendary getting caught out once again.
Yeah, he teleported in for this one. It looked like they wanted to try to force because Delta Fox still had not gone back, but the Twisted Fate Destiny Gate wasn't there for the Baron fight. That means it's up now, and they catch out RF Legendary just like they did over the wall here.
Right, and so this is what I was talking about. It's really awesome to see the Camille use this way, able to go over the wall, stun up the Kha'Zix, trap him in there so he can't get the thing. Get the Baron smite, but then for some reason Wiggly goes over the wall as well. That leaves his backline to get fought by the TF. He tries to flash back over. TF's still there, and you know, they just totally break up their formation, allowing them all to get picked off one at a time rather than as a team and unit backing out into the jungle. And they give up the entire Baron buff that they just worked so hard to get.
Peek and Move tried to go over that wall as well with the Valkyrie, but fell a little bit short. So I don't know if it would have necessarily changed the equation having the Corki in the backline with the Rek'Sai. Probably a little bit easier to kill the Corki if he's directly in the face of your carries, but that was just, like you said, another overextension from Big Gods. Instead of sacrificing the Camille, they sacrificed their Baron buff. They sacrificed the Camille again when they try to contest the Mountain Drake, and now all of a sudden when they had a 4,000 gold advantage, it shrunk, and now it's only 1,000.
Right, and Delta Fox did get that Mountain Drake as well. Arguably going to be more useful in the late game now, as opposed to the 2 Ocean Dragons on the side of Big Jackals. And, I mean, Big isn't done yet. They're still pushing up as a unit, going straight up this mid lane. There's no clear objectives to fight over, so I'm surprised to see them so grouped up and focused on pushing like this, but TF is split to the top side, so maybe they think they can get something done here.
Well, TF does have his Destiny Gate combination available, so he can potentially port in if a fight does break out. This mid lane tower, though, is taking a lot of damage. Both Corki and Jhin are going to be able to poke away at them while dealing damage to that tower, and it will wind up going down in favor of Big God's Jackals. No Baron buff on them means they can't really push any further, but they have learned this time and are backing away.
I'm actually surprised that kind of worked given the fact that they were against Avaris. I would have thought Shannon would have been able to handle a lot of wave clear there with the help of Kha'Zix and Karma being able to shoot their abilities in there as well, but it was actually not enough wave clear, and they're able to take the turret on the side of Big Gods.
Well, both of those AD carries have gone for that pretty much full lethality build. We have the Ghostblade, Manamune, and the Edge of Night picked up by Shinon. On the flip side, replace the Manamune with a Duskblade of Drakthar for Fabi's Jhin. Both of those AD carries are going to be definitely hitting a lot of these champions for a large amount of damage. The Poppy, though, a little bit tough. Iceborne Gauntlets, Ninja Tabby, Sunfire Cave going to be a little bit more resistant to some of these more lethally built AD carries.
Yeah, that was a cute little pun there.
Thank you. I am full of them.
Yeah, and we see that despite getting priority in 2 lanes, they're not actually able to rotate over and take that turret. Delta Fox going to back off here. Not able to do anything with the TF that was split pushing in the top lane. And I assume we're going to see a little bit of a lull here as both teams struggle to get much done with no neutral objectives on the map to force people near, and as well as having a lot of champions that like spreading out to do stuff.
Well, that's going to mean that so far this game, when there hasn't been a neutral objective to fight over, it's usually one of the teams trying to catch somebody in a precarious position. RF Legendary himself has been caught out at least twice this game. There was the one in the top lane and the one post-Baron fight where he was over by the Mountain Dragon pit. He teleported in, was caught out all by himself. But on the flip side, Delta Fox have been caught with their pants down themselves, even just between their own 2 towers. So it's really going to be, where do these teams move from here? Both of them we can expect to take it a little bit safer considering some of these missteps they've had. But this was Delta Fox's kind of Achilles heel in their first week matches. They took the game extremely slow. At that point in time, they had a gold lead, but this time they have a deficit.
Yeah, the big problem, of course, is the fact that they did not go the rapid fire cannon TF, did not learn from their homie Froggen, telling them how to play it. That's the only reason I can really think of that they're down now.
Is that the entire answer to Delta Fox's composition? Instead of picking up a Death Cap or a Luden's Echo or whatever Damonte is going to build into next, if he builds a rapid fire cannon...
Game over.
Game over.
Instantly win. Drop that 2,600 gold on the win now button.
I would bet 2,600 gold on that not.
Yeah, you're probably right, Tom. As we see Big God Jackal shoving up mid and bot lane, trying to get over down to that bot side to get it. down before TF's able to clear the wave, but just too much on the side of Delta Fox.
Delta Fox now, with, like you mentioned, the wave clear from Varus and Twisted Fate, they have that split pushing Poppy. Glimpse of the Void is still available on her for just a little while, but the response from the side of Big Gods is to continue to poke and wear down those towers. It worked in the mid lane. They were able to get that tier 2. They're sticking around and trying to make it happen here on this bottom side tower as well. Poppy's teleport is available, and she's a much tankier, much slower pushing threat, but that means that the Twisted Fate is now here to aid in the wave clear, and it looks like the trade so far is successful for Delta Fox.
I mean, that's just a big mistake on the side of the Jackals. The fact that you can match the Camille at any point there. They seem like they're a little too afraid of the TF being able to engage onto them. As we see, Fabby opening up onto the side of Delta Fox, trying to push him off this turret. They're staying strong, though.
He just winds up using the curtain call to try to zone them away. Gets a little bit of damage, but they're not going to be able to wind up picking up a kill. We did, in the meantime, notice on the mini-map, Brandini hidden that brush in the top lane, wound up recalling, so RF Legendary pinging out that Poppy was no longer there. They were hesitant of that teleport play. Poppy didn't even wind up having to use it, just recall.
Right, and like I was saying, to split push down a turret, it's usually not the case that happens, and basically due to the fact that I think Big God Jackals were playing too afraid of the TF, the fact that they didn't want to put the Camille over there earlier to deal with that Poppy, the fact that they wanted to group up mid and try and force something down, despite the fact that Camille should be wanting to split push a lot more. And even though she's a little bit behind, not where she wants to be yet in the game, ultimately that would have been a much better play than just sacrificing a top inner turret.
Well, the Poppy's been getting the better of the Camille for most of this matchup, or Brandini getting better of RF Legendary in this specific matchup. For a large majority of the game, you factor the Rift Herald into it, that's the key factor. That's why they were afraid. It's because of the Rift Herald buff.
I think they're more scared of the TF.
I don't know. You get your rapid fire cannon, I get my Rift Herald buff.
All right, we'll both be idiots for a moment.
All right, well, Baron buff is on the map, so we have seen that be kind of the make or break scenario for a lot of these games in Challenger week number 1. Specifically in Delta Fox's series, there were 4 Barons that they wound up taking. I think only one of them went over to Team Gates, and Team Gates wasn't even able to win that game off of the back of that. But the Baron buff is really the kind of thing that Delta Fox has shown. That is their go-to, how do we end the game kind of condition. Whereas on the side of Big Gods, they picked up their 3rd dragon here, the 4th of the game. Next one's going to wind up being an Elder Dragon. That could potentially be something they want if they're the ones turning these fights around.
Yeah, Delta Fox definitely showing that controlling dragons is not something that they like to do to win the game. They had everyone alive. They knew the timer on the dragon. For some reason, they were all in base recalling as it came up, allowing Big God Jackals to take it for free. A huge misstep, given that it is, in fact, an Infernal Drake, something they would love to have.
Well, Big Gods were pushing up on the bottom side before. We saw when Fabby's using the curtain call. They have a lot of wards down there. And I guess it was just Delta Fox prioritizing warding around the Baron pit rather than that Dragon pit. They sacrifice an Infernal Drake as well. It's going to only be bolstering the combat stats coming out from Big God's Jackals. And although Delta Fox took 9 of the Dragons in their first series against Team Gates, they've only got 1 today.
Definitely struggling with that element. And we see that despite their decision to go up and group around the Baron buff, they actually lost complete vision control on it. It's only Big God Jackals with wards in that area. Basically, there's one kind of in the blue pit of Big God Jackals. Maybe a good TP flank for the Poppy if ultimately they need to contest that Baron buff, but right now they're just not sure where they are, and they're actually just in base resetting.
Everybody kind of seems to be content taking this slow and steady and waiting until they have as many advantages as possible on their side. Big God's Jackals, they pick up the package for Quirky. On the side of Delta Fox, they finished the Lord Dominic's Regards on Shinon's Varus. Still hasn't transformed the Manamune into the Muramana quite yet, so he doesn't necessarily have that sort of last item power spike you'd kind of expect him to have now. We're already at the 33-minute mark. Although, it looks like that they're not going to wait for Shinon to try to make something happen here. RF Legendary going to try to hookshot away, but the flash forwards in the Monte. Gold card's going to lock him up. The Octagon gets thrown down, but I don't think I've seen this in UFC. There's no 2v1s allowed.
Yeah, this is more WWE than anything, but on the flip side, Big God Jackals are trying to split push down the top side turret and force all of Delta Fox back into their base to try and hold their top inhib turret.
Well, if you traded that top tower, they are going to get the top inhib tower before anybody from Delta Fox responds, and instead of opting for the base race scenario, they let that mid lane tower stay alive. Actually, the minions will be the ones taking it down. So they trade 2 towers for the price of RF Legendary and 1 in the mid lane.
Right, but no one was around to grab that local gold, so ultimately a not too bad of a situation for Big God Jackals, able to just sacrifice RF Legendary, who's been struggling a little bit this game. but not too bad overall, as we see them continue to pressure around this Baron buff as well.
Well, now that they know they have a 4v5 situation, RF will be available in just 10 seconds, and he does have his teleport available. Delta Fox are going to be spending on the Baron buff, but Shinon takes a large chunk of damage. The curtain call is there. They have to pull out of this Baron pit. They are going to wind up turning and fight. Wiggly's going to be the one that gets locked up, but Bayano's going to wind up utilizing his Nether Grasp, but it immediately gets QSS'd off. Shinon's going to wind up taking down the Malzahar after that ultimate was used, and they're going to send Big God's Jackals packing. Looks like they're trying to chase after Grigny. Damonte comes in. He wants to try to get the gold card down. The Pekin Wolf does pop the Zanya's Hourglass. The Deadly Flourish will not take him down, but Corki will with the Gatling gun. Fabi's going to shut down Shinon, but not before he dies as well. Brandini snags that kill, and after all of that, it's a 2-for-2 trade after the Baron pit, but the Hextech ultimatum is back up. There we see the Poppy synergy utilizing her Poppy Copter to just knock Camille away, saves Grigny from the fight. Pekin Wolf is still in the back, but he's kind of a lone wolf at this one. He is going to wind up forcing back all of Delta Fox, and after all of that, there's no Baron and an even trade of kills.
Right, I mean, that was such a crazy team fight on the side of Big God Jackals. The way Bayano just walked up and tried to get an ult onto Shinon, I believe, realizing that he was not going to be able to get in range, and just turned and tried to ult the tank of Delta Fox, and ultimately that's a huge misstep because he's just sitting there taking Baron damage as well. As you see, Shinon, like I was saying, gets very, very low, and then Bayano seems to tunnel on that fact, just walks right past everything happening, trying to get close to him, and then once he realizes he won't be able to, turns on to Brandini, and he just goes down instantly. And then from there, it looks like Big God Jackals are in a tight spot. TF has his ult up. They need to be very, very careful. But Grigny's on the wrong side of the fight. The TF ports in right next to Pekin Wolf, who has a QSS. He's able to drop a ton of damage before needing to do that. And then we see, he gets collapsed on. He goes down. And Fabi, despite getting a 1v3 turned on him, he's actually able to trade one kill back.
Yeah, and that was just another kind of case of Delta Fox over-chasing just a little bit. Grigny, I mean, I guess they need to save their jungler in this situation if they want to have any hopes of turning into Baron, so they utilize the Poppy Copter to keep Camille and Rek'Sai.
He's running home.
There. Somebody eventually is going to point out that our octagon is actually a hexagon.
No, Twitch chat can't count that high.
Can't count past... Octagon has more sides than a hexagon.
Yeah, I know. They can't count it past like 3.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. They probably don't even know what an octagon is, Tom.
I don't know, but I see Twitch chat spam 1, 2, 3 every now and then, but I never see 4.
Exactly my point.
Yeah, well, now Delta Fox, everything's kind of reset for them. They've lost out on a trade. They tried to make something happen while pushing in the mid lane. They lost out on that top inhibitor, but now it's going to be the side of Big God Jackals tries to make something happen. They go into Grigny, and they are going to be able to pick him up after the Nether Grasp was used, and that's crucial because that's the jungler down with Baron alive.
They still need to play this situation out pretty well in order to get this Baron buff without losing any extra members. It looks like Delta Fox is dealing with the minion wave first. If they don't get over here quickly, this might actually just go down for free.
Yeah, the Baron buff already down at 5,000 HP. It is absolutely melting, and there's nothing to contest from the side of Delta Fox. They are going to utilize the Poppy split push on the bottom side of the map, but now that's another Baron picked up by Big Gods. This time they get to keep it.
Right, and Brandini actually started channeling his TP in behind to maybe try and contest the Baron buff until they realized they were way too late, and he actually ended up canceling that, losing his TP advantage that he did have over RF Legendary for a little bit.
Now Delta Fox are posturing for the Elder Dragon. It's not the buff they would have wanted to take, considering they only have one of their own, but they do need to deny it from Big Gods and try to waste their Baron buff here. Damonte's going to get sniped out by the curtain call, and it's going to be Davey that goes down.
Most damage, 1,200.
One heck of a crit coming out from Fabi, and that means that there's going to be another member down from the side of Delta Fox. This Elder Dragon is going to be going down nearly as quick as Baron did. Grigny's going up to clear at the top side. No contest once again from Delta Fox.
Double late game neutral objectives onto the side of Big God Jackals. They're going to go up to the mid lane, hope to start taking down some of these inhibitors, which they're going to need to do pretty quickly.
The mid lane has been cleared out. There's an exposed inhibitor in the top lane, so it looks like that's going to be where Big God's Jackals points their sights on first. Grigny's going to wind up having to use his Void Assault Invisibility just to try to get out, but the Octagon gets thrown down by RF Legendary. Chains of Corruption come out. There's no Poppy in the fight yet, as she does wind up slamming RF Legendary into the wall, and Shinon's able to pick that kill up, so RF Legendary maybe a little bit too far forward. Will trade his life for an inhibitor, though, as the rest of Big God's Jackals backs away.
Big God Jackals, RF Legendary, going for that multi-game conditioning, trying to show the enemy teams that Camille is not that broken in my hands. You can leave it up. Don't worry. It's all the long con, though, as he's actually probably a Camille god. But this game not trying to show it off, as we see him make a good attempt onto Grigna here, misses the E, that's fine before he overextends, jumping into the rest of the team, trying really hard to get that kill.
Well, I mean, he met with a lot of crowd control here. There was a TF card, there was a Varish Chains of Corruption, there was a Poppy stun. This is the chain CC that you have nightmares about if you're a player of League of Legends. Although Big God's Jackals are able to take down an inhibitor in the top lane, so they lost their top laner. They opened up their top lane to super minions, and with the quirky package available and Baron buff still on them, they can bounce between these other two lanes and just wait for the supers.
Right, I mean, the fact that they still have this Baron buff for at least another 2-3 waves, they have a lot of pressure on mid. RF Legendary is going to respawn. His TP is available. He's coming in as they burn down this mid inhibitor turret.
Yep, that means the minion will tank up that tower. The inhibitor is going to fall shortly after that. And Big God's Jackals now, that's 2 inhibitors down. That means there's only 1 left on the map for Delta Fox. They still have that Elder Dragon burn on them with 3 Elemental Drakes strong. That's going to be providing a lot of extra DPS that Delta Fox just can't fight into. Baron buff super minions were pushing in as well. Now things are looking really grim for Delta Fox.
Right, I mean, they basically have to make a stand at this last bot lane inhibitor. And we see that Big God Jackals are going down there to get the wave going in their advantage. We're going to see one last stand, hopefully, out of Delta Fox on this inhibitor turret. And to be honest, I haven't seen a ton of clean fighting out of Big God Jackals, so I think they have a decent chance of holding on, assuming that they don't lose that last inhibitor as they try and deal with these super creeps coming in the other lanes.
With the Keeper Eyes field, they have lost both of their late game buffs. Tower on the outer side of the map is not going to need to be defended by Delta Fox. They have to give that one up. They really can't fight for that. The last couple of Baron buff minions will fade from the side of Big God's Jackals. And like you said, Mark, these fights haven't exactly been the cleanest. It is 18 kills to 18 kills. We're cresting the 40-minute mark, so this is prime Delta Fox territory as both of their games went extremely long last week. But now it's on Big God's Jackals to be able to pull the trigger and close the curtain on game number 1.
You got to deal with a lot of poke, though. That Corki is hurting.
Corki's there, Jin's there. Rek'Sai even has a little bit of poke. It's not going to do the most damage in the world, but it's still super annoying. And if you get chunked out from a lot of that poke coming out, that's somebody that has to go back to heal, in addition to someone that's going to have to eventually go back and deal with 2 waves of super minions pushing in for the side of Big God's Jackals. Delta Fox, they're trying to defend at their own tower. Jin is going to open up with a curtain call. Edge of Night was not available, so he does wind up getting knocked out here. Twisted Fate's going to pour in. They've caught Wiggly against the wall, and Grigny's going to pick up that kill. We do have the Deadly Flourish coming out from Fabi, but it looks like it's a retreat from the side of Big God's Jackals. Delta Fox, they want to chase this. Poppy flashes forward. Brandini's going to get locked up and taken down low. The ultimatum is out, and Grigny's in the center of it all, but Shineon's going to shut down Camille. Jin has picked up a kill onto Kha'Zix, and the front line has fallen for Delta Fox. Corki tries to go forward there, but he is going to get taken out by Twisted Fate. But Delta Fox has to go back because there's super minions taking down their Nexus tower.
Oh man, Big God Jackals almost was able to just survive that fight a little bit more. They probably could have let the Winions take over the game. The fact that Pekin Wolf went down was slightly over-aggressive, trying to work in autos versus the TF. From that position, all he needs to do is sit back there and poke and stop them from being able to get back to the fountain for free. Ultimately, a small overstep as he's going to go down to TF.
And that's how that fight started, with the Poppy just ejecting Fabi from the fray. 7-4 and 7 on Fabi. He's a large part of damage in this kind of dual marksman composition. And after they've locked down the front line from Big Gods, there's no real dedicated tank left for this. So Delta Fox thinks they can just charge in and take this fight.
Right, but they keep hitting frontline carries. We see Pekin Wolf is going to be able to drop a ton of damage over the course of this fight, along with Fabi. So even though it is good for Delta Fox, the fact that they were able to kill a couple members, they did not get the key members. And this is that Valkyrie I was talking about that was just a small overstep. He still has his ultimate available. He can keep trying to poke these low members of Delta Fox. Maybe you get a kill. Maybe you just make it more difficult to get back and defend the inhibitors or the Nexus turrets that were going down. But you get that little bloodlust in your eyes. You feel like you have to take that W in. It's off cooldown. You got to use your abilities.
That's what happened to Demonte last time. He got blown up by Pekin Wolf. So Pekin Wolf is like, you know what? I'm going to do this for you this time around. Didn't even have a rapid fire cannon to deal that much damage.
Unfortunately not. But with that, Delta Fox does manage to hold on to their base. I was saying that they needed to hold on to that last inhibitor turret if they wanted to have any chance in this game. They managed to. Now they're going to be able to deal with the super creep waves until their inhibitors respawn. And then from there, the biggest concern is the Baron buff that is coming up in the next 30 seconds.
Well, their top lane inhibitor has respawned, but with the Baron buff up in 30 seconds, mid lane inhibitor will not yet be available for the side of Delta Fox. They will have to try to push out this mid lane against Big God's Jackals to even try to contest that Baron buff. But if they wind up catching somebody out of position, that Baron buff could be all theirs. RF Legendary once again being caught out here by the Twisted Fate Destiny Gate combination, and although it takes them a while to take them down, RF Legendary will fall again.
Look at all that beautiful vision of the top side of the map by Big Gods. It's all going to go to waste. Just because you got picked in the bot lane.
Yeah, and there is a 48-second death timer on Camille still. We are at the 44-minute mark, and everybody's pretty much hitting like those late-game builds. There's not going to be a ton of space left for extra wards unless you are the supports. There's not going to be a lot of control wards coming out from basically anybody. If you look down the line, QSSs are occupying slots from the side of Delta Fox. RF Legendary is the only one on his team who doesn't have every single one of his item slots filled up. So you're getting into this point of the game where everybody's basically as strong as they're going to get, and it is going to be very crucial to the team that has the superior vision, has the ability to force the fight that is in their favor to try to turn this around. Looks like Big Gods Jackals are using that curtain call just to dissuade Delta Fox from trying to go in and get some of that forward Baron vision. They have the Corki package available as well, but Delta Fox, they stalled long enough to get that inhibitor.
Right, I mean, that's the thing, though, is the fact that despite they got the pick onto RF Legendary, they were very slow about moving into the Baron pit to start getting vision back. They actually didn't grab any with that 4v5 advantage that they had, which they really need to do because it's just going to get harder and harder with the TF ult. It's back available now, so they can use that to face check, but if Big decides to play this fight very slow, you just go into the Baron pit, bait the vision, get a TP flank off maybe with Camille, it starts getting very, very difficult to contest the Baron buff.
And if you look at the side of Big God Jackals, they are going to be pushing up that top side of the map with RF Legendary now. It's on the Baron side of the map, so it's a little bit more difficult to catch them out if they're going to be dancing around that Baron pit to begin with, but it's also threatening one of the exposed inhibitors from the side of Delta Fox, unlike the one that still had a tower on the bottom side of the map. So that's going to be a little bit more push and pull in this kind of Baron tug of war that's going on, forcing Delta Fox to have to deal with those minions.
Right, they're sending the Rek'Sai right now to split push down the bot lane. He doesn't actually have tunnels on the top side of the map, so this is a little risky to do because he can't go and reinforce his team if the TF decides to port and start a fight right now. But it looks like they're just going to try and bait around here. Delta Fox not fighting on that.
No, the Destiny has been used, the gate has been popped, and that's going to be Twisted Fate going in fairly deep. Damonte tries to get a crit onto Fabi, but he's going to QSS, actually Edge of Night that one away. It was the Mercurial Scimitar that got popped to crap that gold card, and now the fight is 4v5 in favor of Big Gods, but Poppy ejects absolutely everybody. But that's one of the main carries, one of the main sources of wave clear down for Delta Fox.
Right, you see just how hard it is to play the tip as the fight actually continues.
Ooh, the
Big
unfurl
Gods
on Shinon. Shinon is down. There's 2 wave clear threats completely gone. They're chasing down onto a low HP Brandini and a half HP Grigny. Looks like that the Guardian Angel is going to be popped for Poppy, and this could be GG for BIG. Poppy winds up falling. Grigny's got no HP left. There's 2 exposed inhibitors, still 4 members from the side of Big, and it looks like they're going for that last Nexus tower.
It's just a small overextension by Damonte trying to get the pick off, but the Malzahar comes in, able to ult him and stop him from being able to one-shot Fabi. Fabi stays alive over the course of that fight, and then Big Gods are able to chase down through, pick up a couple more kills, and close the game out.
Yeah, so that's going to be game number 1 going into the favor of Big Gods Jackals. It wasn't the easiest game for them. They had advantages in the early game. They were trying to make things happen post level 6 with the TF roams that they gave up first blood for. They were able to stabilize more into the mid game. They went for risky Baron calls, and eventually, 40 some odd minutes later, they were able to take it.
Right, but it was not a clean game from either side here. There were very clear moments where each team had the advantage before making an overstep and just thinking that they can get a little bit more, and then get punished very, very hard from it.
Right, and Delta Fox, well, they are no longer undefeated in the Challenger Series, did show that they can still kind of stall things out. They can go for the later stages of the game. Unfortunately for them, whereas they were able to do so against Team Gates, who played a little bit more of a looser kind of solo queue style where those Baron fights are a little bit more messy. When they went up against Big Gods Jackals, you were pointing out how much vision they had down by the Baron pit, how Delta Fox wasn't able to clear it out. They kept getting caught out when they were the ones trying to catch people out.
Right, and I think that was the big problem, was that vision control, the fact that they almost never knew exactly where Big God Jackals were. It makes it really hard to know when someone's actually isolated. So you can pop that TF ult, think you can jump onto Fabi, but you have to understand that the rest of the team is there. And then they were a little slow pulling on the trigger on it, the fact that Rek'Sai was able to get back up from the bot lane where he was split pushing initially.
Right, well, Big Gods, they broke away with a lead a little bit earlier on in this game. At about 17 minutes, they wound up getting a very favorable engagement for themselves. And this was one that was started by Delta Fox, and this kind of became a trend for the game.
Right, I mean, the big thing here is the fact that they're not able to finish off the Camille. They end up focusing a lot of resources down onto RF Legendary. Poppy is going to focus him as the backline starts getting zoned away by Wiggly, and Fabi has wrapped around to join that part of the fight. As we see, once again, Poppy not able to actually finish off RF Legendary. He flashed after, going to go down as well. So they end up losing this fight on both the backline of Big that they were trying to focus down, as well as their own backline getting soloed out by Fabi and Wiggly.
Yeah, and even though they were able to really turn around a lot of these fights that Delta Fox had started originally, Big Gods, it was not a very clean game for themselves. Delta Fox was able to close the gap with a risky Baron call that was made by Big Gods Jackals. It was only 23 minutes into the game. It was a good call considering where Delta Fox was on the map, but the follow-up afterwards is where it fell apart.
Right here, they have the chance to all just run out to the top side of the map, but instead they go over the wall and try and win this fight as well. Obviously, RF Legendary had sacrificed himself to secure the Baron buff. There's no reason for Wiggly to tunnel over, and then Corki runs into the Baron pit to try and get damage over the wall. He goes down as well, and now everyone's dead, and Fabi's left alone trying to run for his life, but Brandini says that's not going to happen.
No, the Poppy forced him against the wall. They shut him down. They wind up getting the ace, but still, that was Delta Fox turning the fight around at 23 minutes. The game lasted another 21 and a half minutes. Before that, both of these teams, they have a lot of things that they kind of need to streamline moving into game number 2 here, because both of them are just letting things kind of go on for a little bit too long, getting a little bit too greedy.
Right, I think that's exactly the word for it, and it's something you see a lot in the challenger scene where you have these two different team comps. Both of them, for the most part, know what they want to do with it, but as soon as it starts getting to those difficult decisions where, okay, we back out now, or we push for a little bit more, that's where they show their inexperience compared to the LCS scene.
Yeah, and this is both of these team compositions kind of had a little, not necessarily a full like pick composition. Delta Fox had it a little bit more with the Twisted Fate capabilities. They had the Varus, the Chain of Corruption, when they could lock people down. And this is, of course, very reminiscent of what Guildcoin United tried to do in their second game in week number 1, drawn a blank. They played it against Big Gods Jackals. So Big Gods kind of had the idea of like, hey, if they don't know how to specifically utilize this composition, we're going to be able to pick apart kind of like the weaker spots. We saw Varus getting caught out a couple of times. We saw Twisted Fate with some very eager Destiny Gate usage in the end stages of the game. They were able to just pick off who was out of position.
Right, and I mean, on the flip side, you have to look at RF Legendary, the fact that he got the Camille pick and honestly didn't do a ton with it. There were some fights where he showed that he understands what the champion can do, like that Baron situation, but there was a lot of times where he also overestimated what the champion could do, and he finds himself in the middle of the entire enemy team going down for free, basically.
We'll have to see if that winds up being a pick or a ban in this second game of the series. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be game number 2 between Big Gods Jackals and Delta Fox. You're watching the NA Challenger Series.
Coming out on the bot lane, Fabi's going to go down quick and easy, followed by Shinon as well, but it's going to end up a 2-for-1 for the side of Delta Fox. Making a move, go on to that bot side with the control that they have. Going to jump onto Shinon. He's going to go down. Looks like that's going to be it for them. Baby actually is going to drop as well.
Malzahar has also fallen, and even though Big Gods has gotten the Baron, they're not getting out with their lives, Mark. Grigny's going to go down to a crit from Fabi, but he's the only one on his team left alive. Damonte comes in. He wants to try to get the gold card down. The Pekin Wolf does pop the Zanya's Hourglass. The Deadly Flourish will not take him down, but Corki will with the Gatling gun. Fabi's going to shut down Shinon. Delta Fox, they want to chase this. Poppy flashes forward. Brandini's going to get locked up and taken down low. The ultimatum is out, and Grigny's in the center of it all. But Shinon's going to shut down Camille. Jin has picked up a kill on the Kazakhs, and the front line has fallen for Delta Fox.